Well, welcome back to what we're calling the first official episode of the True North podcast. The other one's more unofficial because that one wasn't really planned out. That was just, we were doing whatever, so to say. So this is the first official episode 1.5 of the True North podcast. I have Mr. Matthew Finn over here across from me, and Sandon is behind the soundboard. You can't see him. He's off camera, but he is also here. Happy to have you on board. That's him. That was the woo or whatever. So today we're going to be actually talking about certain subjects or whatever. So we figure first and foremost, we would like to, I guess, more or less introduce ourselves. People get familiar with who we are. I know people that we go to church with know who we are, but maybe don't know exactly, a whole lot about us. They know about us from what we do with youth group, how we serve at the church and things like that, but who really is Matthew Finn?
Oh my goodness. Such an interesting
what's the backstory, Matthew Finn?
So we're going to get a little about the boat, but we want to know what's underneath Matthew Finn. What makes Matthew Finn tick? No.
What really just makes your blood boil?
No. What makes my blood boil?
His kids, when they don't do what they say.
They don't do what they say. No, I would say more or less our purpose and the purpose of this video is to kind of, figure out what's the purpose of this podcast, what makes us tick, a little bit about ourselves as far as like our testimonies and all that stuff. So would you like to start, or do you want me to start with mine, or you go with yours?
Yeah, I'll be a gentleman and I will offer you the first start if you're cool with that.
I'm good with that.
I don't want to put any pressure.
A little bit about me. Some of you guys know me. I'm, one of the deacons at our church. Also, I assist Matt as a youth leader, along with Sandon, towards doing the youth ministry. If we look a little tired today, it's because we had a game night last night, and we were up till 12. We were exhausted, very, very tired.
Technically up later than that. We were just here till 12.
Till 12, yeah. I went to bed at 2 a.m., something like that. It's pretty wild. Dude. So, between all the deer and stuff driving back and forth, so a little tired on that regard. So, essentially, we're going to be talking about what makes us tick. So, our love for ministry and, our love for our church and various other things like that. So, for me, I was raised in church most of my life. And newsflash, we're going to kind of glaze over this. And we may, I guess, do like another episode where we're going more in depth with our ministries and life stuff. But we're just going to kind of, do a little bit of an outline for now. But for me, I was raised in church all my life, had a lot of godly people in my life, like mentors. I've mentioned Mr. Dale, in the previous podcast. Maybe we'll have another time to kind of talk about our mentors more. But I had these godly men and women around me that kind of pointed me towards Christ and gave me the example of like what it is really to follow Jesus through their example. For me now, I am currently going to school for English and master's, and eventually one day I'd like to get my doctorate. I have a minor in Christian ministries. My passion is ministry and teaching. Currently right now I am teaching full-time. I said again, there we go.
We're really trying to watch how we say and
so if you can count it, whoever gets the closest counts to the guess of how many write in the comments below. That would be great.
Whoever says and like the most gets publicly shamed next episode.
Oh no, I didn't agree to that. We did not agree to that. He didn't say that was going to happen.
It's happening.
So again, through that passion, able to do ministry and teach kids, and it's something I'm very passionate about. I write books. One of the things I like to write is young adult fantasy books, because they give us a way to kind of illustrate and parallel the important principles and ideals of the Gospels. One of the things that I've always enjoyed have been the parables of Jesus, because they're stories that highlight these things that Jesus was trying to kind of lay down for people. So you have these people that are interested in it, and then you have those that would kind of push away from it, turn away from it because they didn't really want to delve deeper. And that's why I think literature, stories, writing like that are really, really important for kids. And so that's a little bit about me. I enjoy all things English. Now I say that, and I'm not going to say things correctly. I'm going to stumble over words. I'm going to use the word a lot. So bear that in mind. We're all humans, but we do have a passion for Jesus. And so one of the things I try to convey to the kids, and I've heard Matt do quite a few times and saying it also within the youth ministry, is that you are made for this time that you're in right now. I remember I used to always tell my Mima, which is my grandma, which is one of my pillars of the faith, I was like, I really wish I was born during like C.S. Lewis time, World War II, all that stuff. Such a cool time frame. But she was like, well, the problem with that is you wouldn't be born now. And she's like, you wouldn't be as effective as you are now. And she's like, God made you for a specific purpose. So don't ever wish that away, because there's going to be people you talk to that I don't get to talk to. and vice versa. So that's where I'm coming from into this.
Meemaws are wise, man. I had a Meemaw, like literally, I had a Meemaw too, and that woman consistently, like constantly, read her Bible all the time. I actually have her Bible in my office, and just the notes that she had written in there, just from all the years that she did. It's incredible.
My Meemaw is awesome, and I'll eventually have a time where I kind of go into that more. She was very integral for me in high school era because there were several little things going on with our family that just weren't good, and she was just kind of always a light. She's one of those people it's like I really enjoy pickles, just random, right? So she'd have a drawer and she was like, look, I bought a bunch of pickles for you. And so you'd eat them, you get tired of them, and then you'd be like, you know what, I really like bubblegum. And then just suddenly there's all this bubblegum.
That's what Meemaws do, man. They figure out one thing you like and they just
hone in like
they drive it into the ground.
Yeah, and they're like, what's the next thing? And so they keep doing it. She would always get up early, cook for me and stuff, and make tea, made sure we always had a pitcher of tea in the fridge. But she was definitely one of the strongest influences of Christ in my life. And one day I'd like to take time to illustrate that, but
moral of the story: if you have a Meemaw, appreciate her while you still have her. Meemaws are great.
Well, my Meemaw's better than your Meemaw. I'm just going to throw that. No, Meemaw, not yours specifically, but she's pretty awesome.
Right, you never met my Meemaw. You don't know if she was awesome.
That's true.
She could have been a terrible woman. She wasn't, but you don't know that. You've never met her. So
I've never met your Meemaw. My bad. But
it's all good.
So with Matt being the youth pastor of our ministry, I guess he would take the time to share with you guys kind of like his perspective and like what draws him into that also.
Sure, yeah. Well, at least I know for me, like growing up, like we never really went to church in my house, at least. But we started going to church like when I was in 5th grade. My mom, they shopped at Hamrick's, and she ran into an old friend and was like, hey, you need to come check out our church, because my mom had mentioned she would like to get her family back in church, because my Meemaw, she lived with us. Awesome. Or technically we lived with my Meemaw. Like we moved to Greenville and moved into our Meemaw's house and everything. And she would go to church, every single week. And my mom got to the point where she wanted the whole family to be in church, but didn't want to go to Meemaw's church because, Meemaw was older. The pastor at her church was probably like 90. The average age of her church was probably 90. So it's like, we need something, for our kids, stuff for us where everybody can grow and fit in, all that stuff. So she's like, yeah, come visit our church. So we went to her church that one Sunday and just started going ever since. And I was a pretty shy kid. It's hard to believe now. I know it's wild. Yeah, I was very shy. I didn't talk a lot. I think my mom actually worried about me. That's exactly where I'll tell you what happened. So we started when I was in 5th grade. So I was like in a Sunday school class. And it was me and one other girl. There's only 2 of us. And Deb Jolly, she was the teacher for that. She was such a great lady. Like, she gave me my first Bible I ever had. I wish I still had it. I don't know what happened to it. Wish I still had it, but she was such a great woman. Well, then next year, made it into youth group. And as soon as I got into youth group, that's what happened. That's where I really started. I don't want to say
youth group ruined you.
Youth group ruined me, and now here we are.
We're not making a great case for youth group.
We're really not. It'll mess your kids up. Spiritually, it's great, but other than that,
mess them up spiritually.
No, not mess them up spiritually. No. It'll mess them up, make them real immature. But spiritually, they'll be good.
We fixed it.
Yeah, we fixed it. Everything's cool, but it helped me flourish because I was always shy. I never put myself out there. But once, I finally gave my life to Christ in middle school, he started to use the people around me, like the other students, my youth leaders, to help me really step out of my shell and really see the big picture of everything. And it kind of, over time, you don't notice it, when you're that age. But now looking back, like you could see what God was starting to do after, you start to live for him. And that's kind of what happened. Like, if it went for youth group, I don't know the kind of person I would be now without my youth leaders and all that stuff. And the funny thing was, like, I loved youth group. Like, I wanted to be there every Sunday, every Wednesday. If we were doing something on like a random Thursday or Saturday, retreat, camp, whatever it was, I wanted to go because I wanted everything that Jesus had to offer, because home life wasn't great. My parents didn't have the greatest marriage, all that stuff. So I didn't want to be home a lot. So anytime we got the chance to go to church, I wanted to go because I was around people I wanted to be around. I was around leaders and adults who loved me being there and who loved me, which was super important, to have other adults that weren't just your family, that loved and cared about you and respected you and wanted the best for you. So I was always wanting to go. And we went on a mission trip to Baltimore, Maryland. We did it a couple times. I didn't get to make it the second time, but the first time we went, that's when I really felt the call into ministry, which is crazy, being in like 6th, 7th grade. And but the funny thing was, it was so clear to me, like I didn't have to really question it. Like I knew without a shadow of a doubt during that time that God was like, I want you to go into ministry. I want you to do this with your life. And at first I was like, you're nuts. Like, why on earth would you want me to do that? Like, I thought God was insane. I'm like, to want to use me to do that, you know? And so for a while, I kind of pushed back on it, even though I knew that's for a fact what I was going, because I even talked to my pastor about, like, I really feel like this is the direction God's pushing me in. And like I said, I didn't really just jump right into it, want that. It was kind of, I don't want to say like scary, but it was confusing at the same time. I'm like, I just don't understand why me? You know, that doesn't make any sense because I know me.
So a bit of a side note, I'm kind of curious here. So you're, I would say, a really good speaker when it comes to church because, you know, you do announcements and stuff. Are you one of those that like did not enjoy public speaking at all? Or
absolutely not.
Isn't that crazy how
it.
God calls people like that? It's like, I hate public speaking. I don't like being the center of attention, but it's like,
For
God's
sure.
like, you need to get up there and speak on my behalf. It's like, oh, okay.
Absolutely, yeah.
So that's a good, okay.
I think he does that on purpose. He knows the things that you like don't like to do.
He's like, you're
doing that.
You're getting up there.
I mean, it even happened in the Bible, you know, it says like he was not well in speech or a great speaker. So, and that's how I was. Like, didn't like to do public speaking, didn't like to be the center of attention. Obviously, we don't do this to be the center of attention, but I just didn't want any focus on me, like with a bunch of people, like in any way, shape, or form. So for that to be like, I want you to go into ministry, which obviously requires teaching, being in front of people, you know,
making
mentoring.
sense. Yeah, when you're talking, not.
So yeah, it was
gibberish.
a little nerve wracking because I was like, how am I supposed to do that? So I pushed back on it a lot, even though I knew that's the direction I was supposed to go. So as I got older, obviously, you know, tried this kind of career path, I guess you would say, didn't really work out or wasn't really interested in it. You know, tried this other avenue, didn't work out. Well, I'll just do this instead. Didn't really work out. So at some point I was like, okay, I know what God wants me to do, but I have no clue how to get there because I am not a school person. I hated school. Ask my mom, ask my dad, whoever. I hated school. Did not want to be there. Any excuse I could get to get out of school, I was going to use it. But my mom was a nurse. It was hard to fake sick. I think after a while, she just got tired of me trying to get out of school. And she's like, just stay home. I don't care.
Well, it's funny that because my wife Carrie's always like, you love school. It's like, I don't love school. I love the idea of knowing that I'm building towards a purpose. And
right.
Same thing with ministry.
Yeah, you see the end goal.
Yeah, you're seeing the
and
end
you're
goal.
working towards. See,
yeah.
I didn't do that. I'm like, I don't care. I don't want to do it.
It's not going to work for me.
Big goals. Who cares? I just don't want to do it, you know? So for me, I was like, I hate school. Like, but at that point, I was already in my 20s. I'm like, I can't go back to college, you know? I don't even know where to begin if I'm going back to college to do all this stuff. So in the meantime, I was like, I know where God wants me to go, what he wants me to do. I don't know where that's going to take me. I don't even know where to start, but I'm going to do something. So I started doing, you know, self-studying for myself, obviously, because I'm like, I can't get into school right now because the grades I had in high school, I wasn't getting into any college, you know? So I was like, well, I'll self-study. So a lot of times, and it sounds crazy, like I would go like into my closet in my room and I would, you know, read the word. I would listen to sermons. There was like free literature online, like Liberty University. They used to have their textbooks for free. They used to have their textbooks for free on the Apple Store. So I downloaded like all the textbooks I could and I would read them, or I would buy textbooks and I would read them and listen to sermons and learn that way. And I would do it all the time. When my parents couldn't find me, they would just open my closet and they would see, oh, Matt's studying, you know, because that was just like,
where is Matt? Oh, there he is.
That was
That's
like
good.
my quiet time with God, and I had no distractions because I mean, I'm in this small space in my own. There was nothing around me that could, you know, take my direction anywhere else. So that's what I would do for me. And beyond that, I started, you know, working at retirement community. I don't know if we can technically say what the name of it is and everything, so I won't use names or anything like that. Yeah, for sure. But at that point in my life too, I was kind of in a very low place. I just gotten out of a really serious relationship that was really bad for me. And so I was still trying to get my life back on track. And I was like, okay, I know what God wants for me, but what am I going to do to get to where he wants me to be? So I started working at this job, and I credit that place a lot because it helped me grow and mature, have better work ethic for sure, and to kind of at least project me into a direction that was going to help me better financially and everything else. So I started doing that, and after a while, I was like, well, start leading some Bible studies if people are interested, you know, and I'd do it Thursdays after work, and I'd work like second shift. So I'd get off at like 8 o'clock. And at first I have like a few people come, and I would just teach Bible study that way. Well, then it kind of started to grow a little bit after that. After a while, it kind of fizzled out because we worked in the kitchen, and kitchen work's super hard, man, especially working in a large retirement community like we were. So it kind of fizzled out after that. But I still knew, you know, God was wanting me to do something. So my dad convinced me to get my notary so I could do like weddings and stuff like that. And I was like, okay, great, cool. I'll do that.
The more and more I hear you talk about your dad, the more I realize how wise this man was. He was definitely a fantastic. So it's interesting, like, to kind of talk about what you said earlier and like kind of bring it back to where you were sharing. Is one of the things like I'd always talk to my pastor about is like early on in ministry, I was like, you know, I want to do this, this, and this for the ministry and stuff. And, you know, I want to get my license to preach and all that stuff and do all this. And he's like, Matthew, you just need to calm down a little bit. Like, is what he told me. He's like, he goes, God makes you competent on his own. He's like, you don't have to have all this school. And he goes, it's good. He's like, don't mind, you know,
Sure.
the fact that you need it. He's like, and God will sharpen your sword through experience, through engaging with his word and reading. He's like, you don't always need school. He's like, but it is good. I'm not trying to discourage you from that. But don't always be at the point, it's like, I gotta get to the next big hill, or I got to get to this and this. And that's the same for anybody that goes into ministry. It's like, you may say to yourself, I'm not able to do this because ministry is hard. It's like, what if I mess up? What if I do things that aren't right? What if I don't, like, for the most part, portray God in the best light? It's going to happen. I mean, you're human.
Oh, no doubt.
But it's God who calls people and makes them competent to the good work. And so that's a good point. I just wanted to kind of highlight
Yeah,
that.
absolutely. Because that was one of my biggest things is like, I can't
Yeah, because you're like,
school.
I'm the worst person ever. It's like, God, why would you call me? And
Absolutely.
God's like, you know, don't do that. I value you and I have a purpose for you.
And we
you know?
still think that way sometimes,
yeah.
I think.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Because I'm always questioning myself, like, did I, you know, iterate that enough? You know, am I doing? Because even I know how I am, you know, and I'm like,
Yeah,
man, am I really the right person for
We're
this?
our worst enemy because we know what goes on behind the
big
noodle.
time,
And,
big time.
It's like, man, if you could display my thoughts on a regular basis on a screen, he's like, oh, you'd be horrified.
Big
But
time.
God sees that and still is like, you know, I have better plans, you know.
For sure. And that was my whole concern because I was like, I have no, what you would call by standards of wanting a certain career path or whatever, the criteria to meet that career path and that expectation. So I was like, I don't know how I'm going to get there, but I know God has called me to it. So he's going to make it happen. I just don't know what it looks like. So after a while, again, I was leading Bible studies at work, a lot of doing self-studies and just doing other little things, even with my notary, doing like weddings and other little studies with people here and there. And eventually, so there goes, we were, I don't know where we were. I was with my mom and my dad. We were heading back home because I still lived with my parents at the time. And I had heard that Northside, the church, obviously that we're at now, was looking for a youth pastor because the current one was just kind of up and left. And so I asked my mom or my dad one, I was like, well, I wonder if they would consider me. You know, I'm like, even if this isn't where we need to
Slammed
go.
myself in the face with a cup.
Oh, no.
So ignore me. I'm sorry.
Sorry. But I was like, well, I wonder if they would consider me. Because even then, at that moment, I wasn't thinking of like, this is where God's taking me. I just thought it could be another step in the right direction. So I think Mandy at the time, I think my parents might have talked to her and they're like, yeah, you know, they'll bring you and ask you some questions. So I visited like a Sunday. I mean, I dressed
Potential
really
visitor, Mandy.
potential visitor, you know. And it's like I had been to the church before, like, because I mean this has always been their church, and if I stayed there on the weekends or during the summer, I'd come with them. So I was familiar with the church, but I wasn't like a regular. So I visited for a Sunday, came in dressed nice because you never know what people are dressed like. Most people think, you know, wear your best or whatever. Well, when I got there, I realized I was very much overdressed. I wore a bow tie. That first time I was there. Yeah, I mean, I was
love to have
dressed
seen
to
that picture.
the nines. It was pretty nice. I used to care about my appearance a little more.
Wow.
But yeah, I sat through the service. We got done, and Pastor Ronnie and the rest of the deacons took me into what's the women's class now. We sat down, and, you know, in my head, I'm mentally prepared for a job interview, essentially, you know, what kind of questions they're going to ask. So I'd kind of prepped for it. So we sit down, and then Pastor Ronnie goes, well, we've decided we're going to bring you on. And I'm just kind of like,
Nice. Really?
I was like, you don't want to ask me anything? I'm like, I could be a Satanist for all you know. Like you're not going to ask me anything. They're just like, well, you have, you know, really good, you know, references. Yeah, you have really good references, which would have been my sister, her husband, Justin at the time, because Justin was helping fill in while they didn't have a youth pastor as well, because he had a call in the ministry as well. And so I basically got the position at church because of my sister, my brother-in-law, my nephew, all that. And something I essentially thought was going to be a step in the direction God wants me. I mean, it's 8.5 years later and I'm here. And, now we're doing the things like this. So it's funny how then it didn't seem like, okay, well, I'll take this step and do this, and we'll see where it goes from there. I'm like, okay, now we'll do this. And because again, school wasn't really the direction I could go in at that time. And then, I was just taking any avenue I could to get to wherever God wanted me to go. And turns out it was exactly the direction he was leading me to go to get where I am now. And I'm not saying like this is like the end all be all. Like God's always taking us on a journey. We're always on a journey with God. Now, I'm not saying he's going to call me to like some other church or whatever. And if he were, I mean, if that happens, that's on him. But for the foreseeable future, I believe I'm where God wants me to be right now. And it's just funny because back then you couldn't really see the picture. But now it's like you look back and it's like, I'm just like, how in the world am I going to get there, God? And now I can see the whole thing that was just laid out before me. I'm like, I went exactly in the direction he wanted me to go. And he guided me that way. And I couldn't see it at the time. But it was just taking the necessary of just being faithful in the little things. Because we always think that we got to do something big or God's going to put this gigantic sign in front of us. It's like, this is the direction you're supposed to go. Like we feel like we're supposed to have like an obvious sign, but it's not always obvious. Sometimes it's just being faithful in the small things, and those small things will lead you to where God is taking you. And that's why I've tried to do, even in ministry now, just trying to be faithful in the very little things, because he who is faithful with little can be trusted with much, right? Now, we're not doing the little things in order to get more. We just want to be faithful because we love God and we want to be faithful. Right. But essentially, that can take us to, bigger things outside of that. And I might have gotten into too much detail with all that stuff.
No, you're totally fine. It's kind of like one of those things, and I think it's consistent with ministry, and I think a lot of people can say that too. It's like kind of like the hiking trail thing. So you see your destination and your starting point, and you're like, okay, logically, God, the best way is just to go straight through it. But then you start drifting this way and God's moving you a different direction. You're like, okay, God, I don't see the destination anymore. I'm kind of going away. But then you eventually do end up there where God wants you to be.
And if you haven't hiked that trail, you don't know what's coming along the path. You don't know what you're going to run into.
Yeah. And so there's always that possibility. And for me, even kind of the same thing. After high school, I went to school for a little bit, kind of went out because of some family situations and whatnot. I was like, God, I really want to go to school. I really want to learn better and sharpen my skills for preaching, for theology, hermeneutics, all that stuff. And then God called me away in a different direction. But eventually I came back to school and started serving in ministry and doing other things. So I was like, God, you knew what you were doing the whole time. And had something changed, that path would have been different. And it's like, God, I am thankful you did the things the way that you did it.
Oh, sure. If I had done what I believe, was supposed to be the criteria for where God, I don't think I would have ended up where God's plan was for me. I would have messed it up big time.
I know after high school, I was like, I'm going to have a mega church. It's going to be fantastic. I was like, God, forgive me for being so big-headed.
Absolutely.
Not humble at all. I was like, my mind was not in the right place. And it's like, God really took me through that to humble me and say, it's like, you're not that great, just so you know, but I am great and I will make you good, that sort of thing.
Well, it was always funny. My ex-brother-in-law, Eric, he has told me on numerous occasions, he's like, dude, you need your own church. Because he's heard sermons I've preached and stuff. He's like, dude, you need your own church for sure. And that's never really been my goal. You know what I mean? I've always said too, I've never wanted to be a mega church pastor. I like the intimacy of the church, how it is. I want to be able to know people I go to church with. I want to be able to talk to my pastor. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with people that go to, if you're spiritually growing in a church with thousands of people, that's great. Any church where you can go and you can spiritually be fed, you can grow in your faith, you can have community with other people, that's fantastic. So, I'm not knocking on it's just not for me. I've been in mega churches before. I was at one for a year and a half, and for me, it just didn't work. I couldn't grow spiritually. I felt like I couldn't really get to know people because almost every week I was going, I didn't recognize anybody I was in church with. And I went for a year and a half, and I felt like all I saw was new people. And again, that works for some people, and that's great if you are growing in that sense. But for me, it didn't work. I'm like, I need intimacy, in the church, personally for me, in order for me to grow and be fulfilled in my spiritual walk with Christ. But again,
No, I agree. When me and Carrie first got married in 2016, we went to a church that I went back to when I was younger. And we as a family, obviously we'd shifted a little bit, and we're like, we want to be somewhere where we feel like we're valued and useful within the church. And so we Googled Northside Church, or not Northside Church, I'm sorry. We just Googled
I was about to say, that's
Contemporary
very
Church.
specific. You look for that particular name.
Specifically, it came into our heads. No, we were just like Contemporary Church in Lawrence, and then Northside said ding at the very top. We're like, okay, we'll try it out. And we loved it. Absolutely loved it. And
Been here ever since.
Been there ever since. Yeah, fantastic. So Google Contemporary Church and Northside will pop up. That's how you come.
You should come visit us.
Come visit us for
we're
sure.
a little bit biased.
Oh yeah, I definitely have enjoyed the time that we've had at Northside. We definitely have enjoyed every bit of it. It's one of those things where it's a joy to go to church. I'm always like incredibly sad when we're not able to go to church for some reason, with having kids constantly sick or something going on along those lines, or the kids are just awful that day, and runny noses and colds and all that stuff. We get them so much.
I wouldn't know.
You wouldn't know? Oh yeah,
My dog's a perfect angel. She doesn't bother me.
a perfect angel.
Well, she ain't perfect by any means, but it's definitely not like having a kid. I mean,
Well, you know who was a perfect angel? Satan.
wow. I mean, he's not wrong.
He's like, wow.
You're not wrong. He was the perfect.
The word is was.
Keyword was. Not
We
anymore.
love our dogs. So I would say like dogs are an integral part of Northside True North podcast, because we got Kaya, and we have Layla, and then our other dog. We've finally got Kaylin to decide on Coco. She wanted to call it Chocolate. And I feel like you're in SpongeBob where you're like, chocolate, when you're calling for it. But we finally got her to decide on Coco.
I would feel weird saying that too, because then Andre would be like, do you want chocolate? Why are you screaming?
Why are you screaming chocolate? He's just running around outside. But yeah, definitely a cool time. But definitely have enjoyed this church. It feels, not to be cliche, in corporations we're like, we're all a family here.
Right.
We all care for
Sure
one another.
you are.
It's like, yeah, probably not. But I mean, really we can say that with Northside. Like there's so many people that are willing to help, that step up for ministry, that help out in so many ways, that pray for one another and are just really there for one another. I think the biggest thing like about us at Northside is how well, if you're preaching, obviously, then we cut that off a little bit. No, I'm just kidding with the longest thing.
Shots fired.
I'm just playing with you. Wow. The coolest thing is like after a sermon, it's hard to get everybody to leave, because we're all just kind of standing around talking and socializing, fellowshipping.
Yeah, everybody's there for at least another 30 minutes.
30,
just talking.
and then we're either going to Japanese or Mexican, or the one time we go to House of Pizza or
That's
something.
another
like that.
hour with
That's
each other.
another hour with
We're
each other.
constantly just around each other, essentially on a Sunday.
Yeah,
and then kids are upset when they have to leave because they want to be there.
Yeah, Kaylin is big time. Always like, I want to go see my friends at church and run around with them. And that was a big thing when she was old enough to run with them. That was like a coming of age sort of thing where she enjoyed that.
Absolutely, yeah. So, it's funny, like you're essentially like journey, I guess, to where we're at now, because we're always on a journey, but where we're at now, and obviously the name of the podcast is True North Podcast. We're always searching for our true north, which is always God, and that's the direction we should look in, because everybody always has those questions. Like, well, again, like with me, it's like I don't know how I'm going to get there, what I'm supposed to do, but I know the direction God wants me to go in. It's like that true north, right? And that's kind of essentially where we kind of wanted the name to be, obviously, because north side, right?
Yeah, we're not saying exclusively north side is the true north, but we're saying, it kind of coincides with the name of our church.
It just happened to work out that way, for sure. And it was funny because, we essentially kind of talked about this name, and what was so funny is Ronnie had came in, he had went to a program at Micah's school, and he had saw something hanging on the wall in the school, and he took a picture of it. He's like, hey man, check this out, I really really like this. And he showed me the picture, and it said True North, and I'm like, well, it's funny that you say that, because we had talked about that name with the podcast.
Needed a name. So, thank you, sir.
Not saying that like God was like, this was supposed to be the name, but I wouldn't say it's a funny coincidence. I think it just we had kind of thought about it and semi-decided on it, and then that just kind of almost confirmed it, really. Like, okay, this is probably what we should go with, sort of deal. Because essentially God is our true north, right? That's the direction we know to go. Like, we don't always know the path to take to get there, but again, being faithful in the little things, making the effort, whatever it may be, it's taking you in the direction of that true north. And that's kind of where we want this podcast to go. Anything that we discuss, anything that we're going to talk about, we want it to be pointed towards Christ in every single thing that we do. Because again, he's not to be compartmentalized. He's supposed to be in everything that we do in all of our lives. And hopefully we reflect that through all the episodes, however many that's going to be. We may be the longest running show since The Simpsons.
Oh boy,
that's a long time.
That's a big one to live up to. Yeah, I would definitely say the purpose of our podcast is, we're looking towards Jesus at the end, and although we may not understand the exact journey, the twists and turns, the ups and downs, but our ultimate goal is Jesus.
Absolutely, no doubt. So, I think we're off to a good start so far. 2025 has been a good year
Here
at
we
the
go.
church so far.
We have our heading.
So we have our heading for all those what is it, the
Disney fans,
the old out
commercial.
there from the old VHS tapes.
go.
Here we go. We're copyright. We're getting
Yeah,
sued.
okay, never mind. Yep,
We're
sorry.
getting sued.
My bad.
But yeah, we'll definitely have more to talk about in the future. So until I guess next time, Matthew, you have anything else to?
Guys, stay tuned. We appreciate you guys supporting the ministry. Please be in prayer for our church and the podcast. Definitely an opportunity for ministry. But again, we appreciate you all. If you have any questions or information that you'd like to convey to us, you can always comment. Or if you go to our church to speak to us, there's always that. So.
Absolutely. So again, we'll be on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, and on our church website, which is nbclawrence.org. You can watch all of our episodes there. They'll be uploaded new episodes every Friday. New topics, new discussions each and every week. We're going to have fun. It's going to be inspirational. Going to be some challenging things too, because we always want to be able to challenge ourselves in our spiritual walk too. And then feel free to subscribe, like, comment if there's anything specific you would like to be discussed, because we all have questions about God, the Bible, life, whatever it may be. Feel free to comment that, and we would definitely love, to touch on those subjects for sure. And then we've gotten some inquiries about people wanting to come on to the podcast too. So we'll have some special guests along the way too, so it's going to be a really good time. So I guess until then, I'm good. Signing off. Matthew?
All hearts and minds clear.
All hearts and minds clear, as we say. Typical Baptist humor. So until next time, guys, we'll see you. We'll see you then.
Later.